Okay, we're back. We're now going a little bit off course of exercises and talking about some basic principles of lifting mechanics. The fundamental idea is that we want to keep the spine in its neutral resting position. The more the spine is placed in a position of bending forward or flexion or hyperextension or twisting, the more prone to injury it is. So as we go through different lifting techniques, the underlying philosophy is to maintain this neutral spine. A neutral spine means this slight inward curve, which is a normal posture of the spine. Maintaining that as you go through the task is the fundamental idea. So we're going to start with a crate lift. This is a so-called squat lift. And the saying, use your legs, not your back, is fairly well known. But the important thing here is to maintain that neutral spine idea. If I were to lift this crate like this, I am using my legs, but my spine is actually in flexion here, which is a potentially dangerous position for it to be in. So more important than lifting with your legs, not your back, is this idea of maintaining this neutral spine idea as we go through the lift. So that the head is up, back remains straight. That's the neutral part. And we're relying on those leg muscles and thigh muscles to complete the task. We want the object as close as possible. The further out from my body the object is, the more pressure on the lower back. We like to have a shoulder width stance, comfortable enough that the knees are clear of the object, and basically shoulder width or slightly wider, keeping a little tension in the deep abdominal muscles and working through this lift. So this is an example of the so-called squat lift. This would be useful for lifting an object you could get to that's around mid-shin height. If this were a cube with no handles, this lift would not work because there would be nothing for me to hold on to. So we'd have to show you a different lift to do that. I'm going to do that right now. The next lift that we'd like to cover is a tripod lift. And basically, if this were a cube with no handles, I would have to get under it, meaning I would have to get my hands all the way down to the floor. To use those correct mechanics, I can only get down about this low. Any lower than that, I have to flex my spine, which is that dangerous position we don't want it to go in. And incidentally, if you have an option of not lifting a cube like this off the floor, that obviously would be the better solution. If you have a back problem, positioning things so that they're up off the floor and so forth are a better scenario than having to get something all the way down off the floor. But this is the recommended lift called the tripod lift. It's called a tripod lift because you bring the knee down. So you have the knee 2 feet, that's 3 points, that's the tripod part. We're trying to get the hands under the object first, bring it to our hips, keeping the spine nice and neutral and driving straight up. And as you can see, this requires a fair amount of mobility in the hips, hence the importance of doing those hip range of motion exercises, and strength in the leg muscles, the reason for doing those leg strengthening exercises to do this technique correctly. This is not something you would be able to do repetitively, in a short period of time, but occasional lift to get an object off the ground. This is the ideal position. You try and tilt it, so you get under it, bring it to the hips first, back is neutral, drive up with both legs. This is called the tripod lift. And the final thing we wanted to cover with regards to lifting is once you have the object up, or in the course of lifting the object, we want to make sure we're moving through one straight plane of motion. A very dangerous way to lift something is to lift in a twisted fashion. In fact, that's how people hurt their backs quite a bit. If I had to get this crate from here to this shelf, the incorrect way would be to flex and rotate and then lift it and twist again to get to this position. So ideally, we'd like to position the task so that it is not required to rotate towards the shelf, or at the very least, we want to be able to use our squat lift, turn the entire body, and keep that spine nice and neutral as you go through the lift. So this would be the ideal way to lift an object from floor to waist and have to turn and position it to the side. So those are some basic ideas. Really, the important thing is to take those concepts and apply them to the actual work task that you have to complete. Ideally, in an ideal world, this would be set up perfectly at heights and have handles and firm surfaces. In reality, that doesn't always take place, but the idea is to try and adhere to those basic principles: neutral spine, keep the object as close as you can, don't twist and rotate, keep those concepts in mind as much as possible. So thank you for viewing this tape. And
take it from me, Bill Hillgrove, it's the best care, hands down.